For Session Update, I'm Shannon Lurkey. Governor Mark Dayton, Senate Majority Leader Tom Bakk, and House Minority Leader Paul Thissen urged House Republicans to reveal their bonding proposal at a press conference, noting that it's the last piece of the work that needs to be done this session. Governor Dayton released his bonding proposal in January, and the Senate released its proposal on Monday, May 2nd, which is expected to be heard on the Senate floor on Thursday, May 4th. House Republicans have released the figure of $600 million as their target for the bonding proposal, but no specifics have yet been offered. Afterwards, the governor took questions from the Capitol Press Corps. Here's that press conference.
We're here to urge the House Republican leadership to put forward a bonding bill so we can proceed to deal with that very important part of the overall legislative session. You know, the Senate's put forward this bill in specificity. I put mine forward over 100 days ago, and we're still waiting. We're told $600 million is all they're going to offer, and I challenge them to come forward and tell us what that's going to do, and more importantly, tell Minnesotans what it's not going to do, because it's not going to begin to cover the needs that the Senate's identified, that I've identified, that need to be addressed through a bonding bill. So I urge the Speaker to come forward with a bill. If they believe $600 million is the right amount, they should have the willingness to put that forward and say what it is and say what it isn't, and let us proceed from there.
Well, the bonding bill is the last major leg of the session that the Senate needs to get into conference. We've got our budget bill, and of course the tax and transportation bills are in conference, so the bonding bill is really the last big piece to get into conference committee. That bill expects to come out of the Finance Committee this afternoon. I expect we're going to have it on the floor on Thursday and pass it. And I have urged the Speaker on a number of occasions that if we're going to have a good, transparent process, we have to have a conference committee. And the only way to create that is for them to pass a vehicle with some of their provisions in it, so we can get them lined up on a side-by-side against the Senate provisions. So I've asked multiple times. I asked Monday this week, again publicly, and really want him to reach out to Paul and the Democratic caucus for however many votes that he needs, and get that bill negotiated so that it can pass the House, so that we can get it to conference, because time is of the essence here. And I would like to be able to adjourn early. I've offered that to the Speaker. The Republican convention is the last weekend in May, and I think I've offered to him that if we could find a way to get done so that his members could attend the convention up in Duluth, I think that would be the honorable thing to do. I'm not sure why they scheduled their convention for the last weekend of session, but I think for those House members, a lot of them probably would like to be at the convention, so I think an accelerated schedule that would provide that opportunity for them would be helpful, but that also is going to require some cooperation on their part to get things into conference earlier.
Well, I would agree. I mean, our message to the House Republicans with less than 3 weeks to go is simple. It's get the job done and do your job. That's what Minnesotans expect from us as legislators. That's what they deserve. They deserve a legislature that's going to be willing to compromise, that wants to solve problems to move our state forward, and that wants to do it in a way that allows sunshine and transparency to govern the process, so the public can actually weigh in instead of dealing with these issues behind closed doors. The bonding committee has spent nearly $30,000 traveling around the state of Minnesota, looking at projects, raising people's hopes. Republicans have introduced $3.4 billion worth of bonding projects that are obviously important to their communities, or they wouldn't have introduced those bills. But so far, the Republicans are putting up nothing but roadblocks to getting the people's work done, and we cannot start negotiating on this bill until we actually know what's in it, until the cards are on the table. So we are ready to work with the Republicans to get a bill passed. I've talked with Speaker Doudt on numerous occasions over several weeks, asking him how we're going to proceed, when we can sit down to talk about a bonding bill, and a bonding bill that, as all of you know, needs to pass on a bipartisan basis, and nothing has come of those conversations, no response. So we're simply asking the Republicans to step up, put their bill on the table, what a $600 million bonding bill looks like, so that we can start having the discussions in the House Committee, and then those discussions can move forward with the Senate and the governor, and we can actually get the work done for the people of Minnesota.
Respond to questions?
Governor, have you spoken to Speaker Doudt?
Yes, I have. Yes, I had brought it up at our last breakfast late last week.
What was his response?
Not forthcoming. I'm not offering specifics about what's in the bill, not offering specifics about what the timetable is. I pointed out that night before Representative Torkelson was quoted as saying it's the dessert at the end of the meal. I didn't ask him what he meant by that. To me, this is part of the main course. So having a bonding bill is essential to the water quality projects that I proposed, essential to the higher education, both the University of Minnesota and the Minuscule campuses. It's essential to a lot of local communities that have projects. Representative Thissen just said that there was over $3 billion that their members have proposed for their own districts. I mean, this business about making all these proposals when they know they're not going to provide the money to do it, I think is really disingenuous. And again, putting a $600 million bonding bill forward means they're going to have to be clear about what they're willing to support and what they're not. And you know, they're so focused on the numbers all the time without talking about the consequences of those numbers on communities and economic development and quality of higher education and other areas that affect people's lives.
Leader Thissen, how do you judge the motives of your Republican colleagues? Do they just not want to pass a bonding bill? Don't they have the votes, or is it some sort of strategic bid to try to gain leverage in the system later on in the session, from your perspective?
You know, I'm not going to guess what the motives of the Republicans are in moving forward. All I know is the only way that we're going to get a bonding bill done is if the Republicans put their ideas on the table so Minnesotans can look at them, and then we can have the debate that this democracy is all about.
You said several weeks ago that you did not think that there were any votes in your caucus for a $600 million bill. Is that still your position?
I think that is the position. I mean, if you just look at, you know, what some of our, and I don't want to get into a specific number, but if you look at what some of our priorities are, you know, we think investing in college and university infrastructure is really important to the future of the state. The wastewater treatment and pollution control stuff that the governor has put forward is really important. You know, as I travel around going to these conventions, these county conventions over the last several months, time and time again in greater Minnesota, people would come up to me and raise this issue of wastewater treatment and the cost that has on these small towns across Minnesota. It's an organic thing that's coming up. Housing is very important to us. Transportation, rail grade crossings, Minnesota Security Hospital at St. Peter. I mean, these are pretty basic things, and right there you have $600 million. That's no transportation funding. That is no local projects or regional projects of any significance. That is what a 600, you know, so when I say that there's probably no votes for a $600 million bonding bill, it's not because we're, you know, looking at an arbitrary number. If you just look at the substance of what that would buy, it's not going to accomplish what we need for Minnesota.
What about this notion that some Republicans have suggested all three of the major issues are tied: transportation, taxes, and bonding? I mean, how do you guys respond to that?
Well, I can understand that taxes and transportation are a natural link. New money for transportation are tax pieces, whether it's license tabs or motor vehicle sales tax or gas tax. So there's a natural linkage between taxes and transportation. But there is no linkage between taxes and a bonding bill, none at all. So I don't know why we would link things that just have nothing to do with each other. I publicly said I don't believe that they should do that. I think that would be a mistake. I think the Republicans would be wise to go back and look at the media reports in 2004 when a bonding bill didn't pass, and go take a look at the history and then see where the political fallout was on the horizon in the 2006 election. I think if they read those media accounts, they'd probably be giving a little more serious consideration to the importance of getting a bonding bill up and passed. The public expects one. This is the year when we do that. And to let people down, I think there'd be serious political consequences, because I don't see a way they wouldn't be blamed. The governor has proposed a bill. The Senate Democrats intend to pass a bill. I just don't see how it wouldn't fall on them. And I think they need to have a heart-to-heart in their caucus about that, about the jeopardy that they put themselves in.
So you don't think Democrats would be in jeopardy if there was no bonding bill?
We're gonna vote for one.
And that's
And
enough for the
governor proposed
electorate?
one. We'll have done our part. Remember, in 2004, the Democrats all voted for the Senate bonding bill. The then bonding lead chair from Fergus Falls made sure that none of the Republicans voted for it, and clearly they became the obstacle, and that's how the public viewed it. And I don't think this year is going to be any different.
I think they're afraid for people to see how little $600 million will do to meet the needs that are out there expressed by all the requests that we've received. For the University of Minnesota and for the MNSCU campuses, not to make capital investments to allow them just to do basic upkeep and repairs, much less to improve their facilities so that they can attract and retain the best students for the future of our state. Water quality, the water treatment program that I proposed, $220 million, just to give some of the smaller communities in Minnesota the ability to afford to provide safe drinking water for their citizens. Items like Lewis and Clark, which benefits that southwestern corner of the state, the pipeline there that's essential for economic expansion in businesses located there that want to grow and can't because of the lack of water. I mean, 600 million is a nice low number for them, and the lower number the better seems to be their mantra. But it doesn't meet the needs of the state. And if they think doing nothing, offering nothing is what Minnesota needs for the future, we have a fundamental disagreement that we can't resolve in this legislative session. We'll carry and let people in Minnesota decide whether they want to move forward or not.
Governor, a House Republican spokeswoman just tweeted, "Let's prioritize how we allocate existing resources for transportation and tax relief before turning to borrowing." What's your response to that? Again, they're trying to tie all three of these things together.
They say we should run government more like a business. Businesses make capital investments to expand their businesses, to grow their businesses. They know if they don't make capital investments, their businesses are not going to be successful. Same thing with government. We're talking about something totally different from the application of general fund revenues and the surplus we have, which could go to transportation, could go to bonding, should go to taxes, could go to early education and the like. Bonding is a separate matter. We rank 25th among the states in bonded indebtedness per capita. We're right in the middle. We have a responsible state fiscal policy, and for them, borrowing is a word they use to try to evade behind what we really need for Minnesota. And it's time for them to come forward and say, okay, this is all we think we want to do, $600 million, and therefore this is what it'll be. And I agree with Senator Bakk. That's totally separate from the issues regarding the general fund.
And we could just say to that, we should be able to walk and chew gum in the legislature. We're not even asking them to necessarily pass the bill right now. We want them at least to put a bill on the table so we can start the discussion. And so, I mean, just to say we're not going to take any action whatsoever until we actually wrap up a tax bill and transportation bill and spending bill, that's a cover-up for not wanting to move forward in putting their ideas on the table.
For a caucus that insisted upon $1.5 billion in additional borrowing in 2011, $750 million from our tobacco income for the future, and $750 million from our school districts, they agreed to borrow that much money to cover up their unwillingness to raise taxes on the wealthiest 2% of Minnesotans. Just points out how flawed that tweet is.
Governor, is it possible that the Minnesota electorate is shadowing what we're seeing nationally in this kind of anti-government fervor, particularly on the Republican side, and that no bonding bill suits that?
Well, you'd have to ask Mr. Trump his position on our bonding bill. I don't know. Can't speak to that. I believe most Minnesotans want to see us make progress. I think most Minnesotans realize that we need to treat our water and so it's drinkable for our citizens. I think they understand if we don't improve our higher education facilities, we're not going to attract the best students. Their children are not going to go to our campuses because they're not going to get the quality of education. I think Minnesotans are common sense about what our needs are, and I think the kind of bonding bill we proposed, the Senate and I have proposed, is common sense relative to the needs that have been expressed.
Governor, if this...
Well, let me just say on Mary's point, I don't think Minnesota is at the place where the states that have been voting for Donald Trump are at. Even among the Republican caucus goers, he finished a distant third in Minnesota. You know, one of the few states, maybe the only state that voted for Rubio. But I just don't think Minnesotans are aware that the Trump followers are.
Governor, if this legislature adjourns without a bonding bill, will you call them back special session?
We have almost 3 weeks still remaining. It's premature for me to speculate on that.
Governor, if there is no bonding bill, a lot of projects could probably stand a 1-year delay and come back next year past the bonding bill. But are there some projects that are absolutely essential that must be done this year?
Well, ask the university presidents if these projects are essential. Ask the president of the university and the chancellor of the MNSCU system whether the basic repairs that they have in these bills, which are still not fully funded by my proposal, ask them how essential those are. I remember one of the legislators saying last year about the transportation bill, well, the situation is urgent, but it's not that urgent. Those are subjective decisions, but I would say that failure to pass a bonding bill is a failure to let Minnesota make progress. And it's also a failure to put people who could use that work back to work. Our building trades employment is much better than it has been a couple of years ago, is an argument for this bill, but it puts people to work.
On that, let me just say, negotiating a state budget is a difficult process. And the notion that we can kick the bonding bill down the road to next year and add that to the legislature agenda when we're trying to put a new 2-year budget together is downright irresponsible as one of the leaders that has to try and put that package together. That would be more, I think, than the legislature can handle in a budget year.
The difficult process of negotiating the budget last year did not have the three of you reading from the same page. Are you reading from the same page for the end of this session?
I feel like we are.
I think so.
Yes.
Let me just say, this is a familiar frame, right? We get 2.5 weeks out from the end, and we hear a lot of whispering out in the hallway about a train wreck is coming, and it's going to be a do-nothing session. And I guess in all of our memories, things seem somehow to come together. And sometimes it's a little bumpier than other times, but things do come together, and I believe this session will come together too. It'll look a little different than other ones, and they all are a little bit different, but they have that common theme of, on May 23rd, we're going to go home.
Senator, the Transportation Conference Committee is going to be meeting here at 2 o'clock, talking about funding for transportation. Do you see any hope for an agreement there?
I expect the Senate to make an offer to the conference committee on Friday. The House has the gavel today.
Senator?
But they would wait till Friday to make an offer.
The Senate will wait until it has the gavel to make an offer.
Can you talk a little bit more about that offer?
I don't know what that offer is. I just know that Senator Dibble came to me and said he'd like to talk to me about making an offer on Friday when he has the gavel. Now you know everything I know.
Senator, do you have enough Republican votes to pass the bonding bill in the Senate?
Well, I would think so. I would remind them if they as a caucus decide to take it down, that mirrors what happened in 2004. And when the Senate came back in 2006, we not only had enough votes to pass a bonding bill without them, we had enough votes to suspend the rules without them. We came back with 46. So I think they would be wise. Many of them weren't here then, and I think many of them would be wise to revisit that history.
All your caucus members going to vote for the bonding bill, Senator?
I expect they would.
And tell us, if you will, how you may perhaps managed to quiet down the discomfort over the Southwest Light Rail among some of your caucus members and let this thing move forward.
Well, I think the letter, some of the people I think that signed it didn't read it, and because they trust each other, and I think the wordage probably wasn't as, Senator Latsis told me the wordage wasn't as well crafted as he'd like to have been. That cohort of people feel real strongly about Southwest Rail. Southwest Rail has already been funded by the Senate. It's in our transportation bill. So we've got it in conference already. I don't see a reason to put it in conference in two different places.
But if earlier the idea is that the transportation, the bonding should be linked to taxes and transportation. It seems like these 7 DFL senators are linking at least the bonding bill to the Southwest Light Rail funding, another project that Republicans also oppose. So, I mean, with such wide gulfs between the competing tax, bonding, and transportation plans, and no discernible progress on those issues so far, I mean, what's it going to take to reach a compromise by May 23rd?
Well, first we've got to get a Republican bonding bill on the table so we can see what they'd like to do, right? I mean, the Senate bonding bill's got significant money for transportation. In fact, if you parse through that Senate bonding bill, if you take the education components and the transportation components, it's half of our bill. I think once we see what the House Republicans are proposing in the area of bonding, and is it bonding plus some cash or what it looks like, I think we'll know a little better. But the letter that those 7 senators signed actually had a great deal of options in it relative to Southwest Rail. I just think they didn't quite acknowledge the fact that it had already been passed in the transportation bill, but they did indicate that that was a viable alternative to bonding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to sit around with the fun stuff.
Oh.
Okay, what else?
Governor, at what point do you and Senator Bakk meet with Speaker Dow to start trying to find an end to this?
I'm available to meet with anybody at any time. I think this week I've seen that they were going to be putting their sides of the bills together. That's why it'd be very helpful if the House would put it forward as bonding, so we know where we stand. Then we can talk about how we can bridge the gaps.
A different process than we saw last year with those long sessions in the residence that reporters couldn't watch?
Yes.
What different process do you have in mind?
Well, I don't think we need to spend that much time trying to resolve differences because, you know, none of these bills are must-haves in order to continue to operate state government. There's some must-haves to operate state government better and provide, like broadband, what people in Minnesota need. The one area I outlined for a couple weeks now to both House and Senate leaders is we need the money to operate St. Peter and Anoka and the related facilities at even the present level. So if they won't provide that money we've outlined, and we're discussing with them the consequences of that, of not being able to provide even the level of services now and accommodate the number of patients that we now have, for example, at Anoka, and the consequences for the 48-hour law. So that's the one where I'd say, you know, we really have to have additional money, and I will press if they're not able to do that through the omnibus bill, that they put that in a clean, separate bill without any of the provisions that are also disqualifiers.
Governor, is a bonding bill a must-have for this session?
Well, I mean, Minnesota needs a bonding bill. It's not nothing I have to have. It's what Minnesota needs. The university in Minsk certainly definitely and almost desperately need it for basic upkeep and repairs, as the chancellor and the president could articulate better than I. But I mean, there's the water quality treatment part of it. I mean, if we want to keep Minnesota at a standstill, then one way to do that is to not pass a bonding bill.
As far as Mark Dayton is concerned, as an elected representative of the people of Minnesota, is it a must-have, sir?
I think it's a must-have for Minnesota, yes.
Governor Dayton, the travel ban in North Carolina likely means that some public colleges in Minnesota won't be traveling there for College World Series or college baseball players. What is your response to that?
Well, I'm going to withhold comment on that because I believe the Minuscu and the Chancellor, the Presidents are reviewing that, what was expressed yesterday, so I'm going to let them have that opportunity.
Governor, what are your latest thoughts on Donald Trump as he's now the presumptive GOP nominee, and what impact might it have on Minnesota legislative races? Do you have any concern about the top of that ticket?
Well, he's at the top of their ticket. I mean, it is what it is. I don't give advice to the Republican Party. They don't offer much advice. They offer a lot of advice to me, but none that I'm really inclined to take.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. It is what it is. How people, you know, he's been. I don't underestimate him. I think he's been underestimated throughout this process by people who've done so to their peril. He's obviously very serious in his intent to become president of the United States, and he has a message that captured over half the electorate in Indiana, the Republican side of the electorate yesterday. You have to respect that political prowess. So, you know, he'll be their candidate. It'll be a fierce contest in November.
Governor, a lot of Democrats are licking their chops, thinking he's going to hurt Republicans all the way down the ballot. Do you think that could have an impact on whether the Democrats can take control of the House in Minnesota?
I mean, everything that happens at the top of the ticket has an impact farther down. But, you know, Minnesotans are make up their own decisions on who they're going to support for various offices. And I mean, I don't know. Again, we're talking hypotheticals of something that, you know, isn't going to be taking effect 6 months from now. I've always said a year is a millennium in politics, so we're half a millennia away from next November's election. But you always want somebody at the top of the ticket to be running strongly. But I haven't seen any polling to know whether he runs strongly, particularly in the districts that are in play for the legislature.
Governor, what do what does Democrats' message need to be with Donald Trump likely being the candidate? And not only on the national level, but more on the state level, what does the message need to be?
Well, I think the message is becoming very clear at the state level. We want our progress we have made to continue. We want to expand it to those who have not received the benefit of the economic growth that's occurred here. We want government to be an ally with the business sector in creating jobs, and we have been so far. And the evidence compared to other states shows conclusively that Minnesota has done better than most other states in our economic recovery. We want that to continue. Not having a bonding bill is not progress. Not having a transportation bill is not progress. If we fail to do the things that Minnesotans know they need for their benefit and for our future, then I think they'll hold to account those who have stood in the way.
What will you do to hold Republicans to account? How active do you plan to be on the campaign trail?
I'm going from August through October, 87 counties in 86 days. I get a pace of what I did in 2010, 87 counties in 87 days. And it's going to be about issues that I care about, like water quality. I want to make Minnesotans move water quality of their water to a #1 concern, so that they will insist that local government and their, as well as state government, do what's necessary to clean up the water that they're drinking and make it safe. I'm going to push for early childhood education, assuming that that's not yet been enacted, that parents understand that they need to raise their voices and tell their local officials and state officials that they want their 4-year-olds to have the option to go to a quality pre-K program in our public schools. And that those who say that we're not going to allow them that option because they think it's going to make more Democrats add more teachers to our schools will then become union members, and Democrats are way out of touch with what's important in the future of Minnesota. It's not about politics, it's about people.
Governor, I'm not sure I understood your answer about the North Carolina travel ban and how it might impact these college baseball teams. Should that ban? They're reconsidering. My information is that the presidents and the chancellor are reconsidering that issue now, like right now. So I'm going to withhold my comment until they come to their clarity. But in your mind, should the travel ban you called for, should it extend that far down?
I'm going to give them their opportunity.
In the 87 and 86, I asked a political question you answered with your tour. Are you going to combine politics and official business?
Well, if I'm invited to DFL events for DFL candidates, by the time we get to the fall, I'll do that separate from my travels for the policies, the issues I care about.
So who's going to pay for the travel?
We'll work that out to your satisfaction.
We'll see.
Not your satisfaction. I mean, we'll have a clear line between the expenses involved with my traveling on state business and those that involve political activities, and it'll be very clear to everybody which is which, and all of you will be looking over my shoulder to make sure we do it properly, and tweeting every step of the way. Okay, thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.